A 75-year-old died this way, the most dangerous time of day for seniors to take showers. Before we begin, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for being here, for taking time not just to watch, but to take care of the body that's carried you this far. It was still dark outside when Jennifer Peterson pulled into her mother's driveway. The porch light was still on, casting a tired yellow glow across the frost-covered lawn. She wasn't supposed to be there, not at 6:45 in the morning. But something hadn't felt right when her mother didn't answer the usual evening call the night before. Her texts had gone unread. No good night message. No read receipt. Inside the house was silent. Jennifer called out once, twice. Mom, nothing. The kettle on the stove was untouched, the teacup still dry on its saucer. As she stepped closer to the bathroom door, the sound of water reached her ears. A dull rush running continuous. Dread closed in around her chest. She pushed the door open and screamed. Margaret Peterson, 77, lay crumpled on the tile floor. Her skin pale and wet, her robe soaked through. The water from the shower head pelted the side of the tub, spraying in all directions. Her legs were twisted unnaturally beneath her. Jennifer dropped to her knees, reaching for her mother's wrist. There was a pulse, faint but there. The paramedics arrived within minutes. They worked quickly, lifting Margaret gently, drying her skin, checking vitals. Jennifer stood in the hallway, trembling, staring at the steam that still lingered in the mirror. Her mother, so strong, so proud, had been just minutes away from dying alone in her bathroom. From what? A simple morning shower. It didn't make sense. Margaret had always been independent. A former school principal. She prided herself on doing things herself. She still cooked her own meals, drove to the post office twice a week, and even tended to her backyard herbs. Her morning routine had never changed. Wake up at 6, make tea, and shower before the world stirred. She believed those early hours were when the body was sharpest and the spirit most awake. But this time, that same routine had nearly taken her life. At the hospital, a nurse gently explained what the doctor suspected. It wasn't a stroke. It wasn't a heart attack. It was something most people overlook: a sudden drop in blood pressure. Orthostatic hypotension, made worse by dehydration, early morning medication, and hot water. Jennifer blinked. You mean it was the timing of her shower? The nurse nodded. For seniors, the early morning between 4 and 8 a.m. can be the most dangerous time to shower, especially with blood pressure, meds in their system. The body's still adjusting. It hasn't caught up yet. In that moment, Jennifer's world shifted. How could something so ordinary, something so routine, hold such deadly risk? Margaret had done what millions of seniors do every day. She woke up early, took her medicine, and stepped into a hot shower, and that nearly killed her. Over the next few days, Jennifer stayed by her mother's side. Margaret regained consciousness slowly. The bruises on her hip would take weeks to fade. The fracture in her shoulder would take longer. But the real damage wasn't just physical. It was psychological. When she finally spoke, her voice was laced with shame. I thought I was being smart, staying on the schedule, doing things early before the day got ahead of me. I didn't know. Her eyes welled. I didn't know. I was putting myself in danger. Jennifer squeezed her hand. None of us knew, but we do now. And that changes everything. Margaret was always a fighter. That week, she asked Jennifer to bring her a notebook. On the first page, she wrote in careful, trembling script, "New morning rules." She began researching safer routines, asked her doctor about adjusting medication timing, and insisted on installing a waterproof emergency button in the bathroom. Jennifer helped her place a post-it note on the mirror. No showers before 10 a.m. A simple change, but it might have saved her life. By the time Margaret returned home, the house felt different. There were motion-activated lights leading to the bathroom. The rug outside the shower was now a bright anti-slip mat. Her medication chart was color-coded and pinned to the fridge, and next to her toothbrush sat a full glass of water, waiting for her the moment she woke up. But the biggest shift wasn't in her house. It was in her awareness. She had faced a silent killer. Most people never think twice about, and she had lived to tell the story. If you or someone you love is over 70, ask yourself this: what time do you shower? What simple routines might be putting you at risk? Don't wait to find out the hard way. Let Margaret's close call be the wake-up call for us all. If this story opened your eyes, share it with your parents, your friends, or anyone who still thinks early showers are harmless. It might just save a life tomorrow morning. Jennifer sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her mother lying pale but conscious under layers of warm blankets. Beatrice's eyes blinked slowly, disoriented but alive. The doctors said it was a combination of early morning hypotension, medication, timing, and sudden temperature shock from the hot shower. Had Jennifer arrived even 30 minutes later, the outcome might have been irreversible. The room was quiet, except for the rhythmic beeping of machines. Jennifer clutched her mother's hand, trying to keep her own guilt from spilling out. Beatrice tried to smile. "I thought it was just a normal morning," she whispered. Outside, the sun had begun to rise. Nurses bustled down the hall. Life continued. But for Jennifer, something had shifted permanently. She could no longer see her mother's independence as a shield. It was at times a risk. Later that week, Jennifer sat with her laptop open and began researching senior safety. She had always believed in giving her mother space, letting her live on her own terms. But now she wondered if love meant stepping in, even when it felt like crossing a line. She read studies from Harvard Medical School about how blood pressure dips during the night and spikes in the early morning. How that surge becomes dangerous after 70, especially combined with heat exposure from showers. She found articles about seniors collapsing in bathrooms unnoticed for hours. The statistics chilled her. The risk wasn't rare. It was routine. Jennifer picked up the phone and called her cousin Michael, a fireman with over 20 years of rescue experience. "You'd be surprised," he said grimly. "We respond to at least one early morning shower collapse a month. Most people don't talk about it, but it's real." The following day, Jennifer returned to her mother's house. Beatrice was recovering well, but still shaken. "You don't need to fuss," she said. watching Jennifer unpack a nightlight, non-slip mats, and a new shower chair. But there was no resistance in her voice. "It's not fuss," Jennifer replied softly. "It's protection." She placed a sticky note on the bathroom mirror. "Shower after 10 a.m. Drink water first. Wait 2 hours after meds." That evening, over tea, Beatrice confessed something that surprised her daughter. "I've been feeling dizzy for months," she said, her fingers wrapped around the cup. "But I didn't want to worry you. I thought it was just part of aging." Jennifer felt a lump in her throat. "Mom, aging shouldn't mean silently suffering." That night, Jennifer wrote a post on a senior health forum sharing her mother's story. It went viral within a day. Hundreds of comments poured in from families who had faced similar experiences: falls, fainting spells, unexplained injuries. Most had never made the connection between timing temperature and medication. Beatrice began to change her routine. Showers moved to late morning. A waterproof call button was installed within reach. A water bottle waited by the sink. Her confidence returned. So did Jennifer's peace of mind. One Saturday morning, Jennifer joined her mother for a short walk in the garden. Beatrice, cane in hand, paused by the rosemary bush and smiled. "I used to rush through my mornings," she said. "Now, I take my time. Feels like I'm finally listening to my body." Jennifer hugged her mother gently. "And I'm listening to you." The danger hadn't disappeared, but the silence around it had, and in its place was something stronger: awareness, preparedness, and connection. If you or someone you love is over 70, don't wait until a fall or a close call to make changes. Adjusting your morning routine, staying hydrated, and being mindful of medication timing can save a life. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, prevention starts with a single conversation. The sound of shattering glass echoed through the house, followed by a sharp cry. For a moment, everything went still. Then came the chaos. It was a Thursday morning, just past 6. Evelyn had always been an early riser. The house still clung to the coolness of dawn as soft light seeped through the kitchen window. The scent of chamomile from last night's tea still lingered faintly in the air. She moved through her morning routine, slowly, legs stiffer than usual, a dull ache crawling up her spine. At 72, Evelyn still took pride in her independence. Her children had insisted she move into assisted living, but she refused. She cherished her rituals, watering her violets, folding her linens, just so, starting the kettle before sunrise. But that morning, her routine betrayed her. As she stepped into the shower, her usual time, 6:15 a.m., her body trembled. She hadn't yet drunk her glass of water, hadn't turned on the brighter bathroom lights. The steam swirled the tiles, slick with condensation. That's when it happened. A faint dizziness crept in. Then a surge of heat, and her legs gave way. Her shoulder struck the glass door, shattering it, and her body hit the cold tile with a thud that sent a ripple of fear through the walls of her home. The pain wasn't the worst part. It was the silence. Evelyn lay there, the water still running, the blood from a shallow cut mixing with the warm spray. No one knew. She had fallen. No one was coming. For nearly 30 minutes, she drifted in and out of consciousness. When she finally found the strength to crawl to the hallway and press her emergency alert button, her voice cracked as she whispered, "Help that fall," was a wake-up call. Evelyn was forced to confront the truth. She had ignored every warning sign. Her doctor had mentioned dehydration, warned about early morning showers, asked her to move her routine to a safer time. She hadn't listened. The fall hadn't just bruised her skin. It shattered the illusion that nothing needed to change. During her hospital stay, Evelyn replayed every moment. How often had she dismissed her fatigue? How many times had she told herself, "I've been doing this for years"? Pride had disguised itself as strength. But real strength, she now realized, was the courage to adapt. When she returned home, things were different. Her daughter helped install motion sensor lights in the bathroom. A neighbor placed anti-slip mats in every corner. Most importantly, Evelyn adjusted her routine. Showers now happened at 10:30 a.m. After breakfast, after hydration, after she felt steady. She began keeping a small notebook. The New Morning Journal, she called it. So, each page held reminders. Drink water before standing. Open the blinds. Call someone, breathe. One morning, a few weeks later, Evelyn did something she hadn't done in years. She invited her neighbor Carol for tea. Carol was 69 and had her own set of stubborn routines. They talked about their mornings, about the tiny changes they had made, about how hard it was to let go of old habits. "I used to think adjusting meant giving up," Evelyn admitted, "but it doesn't. It just means choosing life again on new terms." That afternoon, Carol ordered her own set of anti-slip mats and moved her shower to 11 a.m. Evelyn's story didn't just stop with her. It became a ripple, a message shared in quiet conversations, passed from neighbor to neighbor, daughter to mother, friend to friend. She had fallen, but she had risen, not just with bruises, but with wisdom. If you're reading this and thinking, "I'll be fine," Evelyn would tell you, don't wait until you're lying on a cold floor to realize it's time to change. Small decisions save lives. Change your shower time. Drink your water. Talk to someone. These are not concessions. They're acts of self-respect. Your body is talking to you. Are you listening? And if Evelyn's journey reminded you of someone, your parent, a neighbor, or even yourself, share this story with them. Because sometimes the most dangerous thing about aging is thinking nothing needs to change. The morning sun was just beginning to paint the sky with shades of soft amber when Ruth bent down to pick up the mail outside her door. She was 78 and sharp-witted, known among her neighbors for her neat garden and fresh blueberry muffins. But inside her home, she had a secret, a routine she refused to change. Every morning, before the neighborhood had stirred, she took her shower at 5:30 a.m. This habit had been her anchor for decades, a ritual she adopted from her years as a school teacher. She would rise before dawn, prepare herself meticulously, and step into the shower as the city remained cloaked in sleep. She believed it made her more productive, more disciplined, but she had no idea the risk she was taking each day. On a quiet Tuesday morning, that risk almost claimed her life. The air was crisp and the bathroom tiles cold. As the steam began to swirl around her, Ruth felt an unusual lightness in her head. She gripped the silver handle inside the shower, trying to steady herself, but her legs wobbled beneath her. A wave of dizziness overtook her before she could call for help. Her vision blurred. Her body gave way. She fell. When she woke, her body was curled awkwardly on the wet floor, and sharp pain pulsed through her hip and shoulder. The clock read 6:02 a.m. No one else was awake. No one heard the fall. Her phone was in the other room. She lay there for over an hour before a neighbor, checking in on their morning walk, noticed the front door still ajar and called for help. The paramedic said it was a miracle she didn't suffer a brain injury. Her blood pressure had dropped to a dangerous level, likely worsened by her early morning medication and the hot water. That day, Ruth learned that showering between 4 a.m. and 8 a.m. after the age of 70 is one of the most dangerous routines a senior can have. Medical research calls it the morning surge, a time when the body undergoes dramatic shifts in blood pressure, combined with hot water, slippery surfaces, and low blood sugar. It's a recipe for falls and even cardiac events. In the hospital bed, Ruth felt more than physical pain. She felt betrayal. She had always taken care of herself. She ate well, exercised, stayed social. But her pride and independence had blinded her to one simple truth. The body changes and routines must change too. When she returned home weeks later, her daughter had made some modifications. Grab bars in the shower, non-slip mats, motion-activated lights, and a new routine. No more early showers, her daughter said gently, placing a glass of water by her bedside. I was just trying to keep my rhythm, Ruth replied. And we almost lost you because of it. The next morning, Ruth sat on the edge of her bed at 9 a.m., sipping her water and letting her body wake naturally. She waited until 10 a.m. to shower, this time with the daylight in full bloom and her daughter just outside the door. The change felt strange, but also safe. Over the following days, Ruth began to notice the benefits. Her dizziness disappeared. Her skin, once sensitive and blotchy, felt less irritated. And perhaps most of all, her mornings no longer felt rushed. She still baked, still gardened, still called her friends before noon. But now she did it with the understanding that safety wasn't a sign of weakness. It was an act of love, both for herself and her family. As weeks turned into months, Ruth became an advocate in her senior community. She shared her story, encouraged others to shift their shower times, and even helped install anti-scald valves for her friends. Her near tragedy became her mission. Change 1 hour, and you might add years, she would say, holding her cup of tea, eyes wise and steady. If you're watching this now, and you're over 70, or you love someone who has asked yourself, when is your shower scheduled? Could this one simple shift be the key to avoiding a silent, deadly mistake? It isn't just about cleanliness. It's about consciousness. If Ruth's story resonates with you, don't wait. Share this message with someone you love. Make the change. And remember, safety in the small things creates freedom in the big ones. It started with a single question, innocent on the surface, but heavy with the weight of all that had happened. Ruth had just finished a late morning walk, the crisp air carrying the scent of fallen leaves and lavender from her neighbor's garden. Her daughter Emily sat with her on the porch, both of them sipping tea, watching the breeze play with the hem of the curtains. That's when Emily asked softly, "Mom, were you scared that morning?" The question broke something open in Ruth. She hadn't really spoken about it. Not the fall, not the hospital, not the hours lying helpless and alone. But now, under the golden sky with no pressure to perform, she nodded. "Yes," she said, "I was terrified. Not of dying, but of being forgotten there, of realizing I'd been foolish." Emily reached for her hand, her eyes damp but steady. "You weren't foolish. You were strong. And now you're wiser." They sat in silence for a moment, and Ruth found herself smiling, not because the memory had lost its sting, but because it no longer owned her. That conversation sparked something deeper between them. Over the next few days, they spoke about more than just routines and medications. They talked about aging, what it feels like to lose control over things that once came effortlessly. Ruth admitted how hard it had been to accept that her body had changed, that the time of day she showered could decide the course of her entire week or her life. "But you adapted," Emily said, "and that's what matters most." Ruth thought about that. For years, she had clung to independence like armor, convinced that changing her habits would mean surrendering who she was. But now, she saw it differently. Changing didn't erase her strength. It proved it. At her next senior center gathering, Ruth stood up to speak, a woman who had once dreaded looking vulnerable, now sharing her story without shame. "I used to think I had to prove something," she began, her voice clear. "That waking early, sticking to my old schedule, meant I was strong. But strength isn't about staying the same. It's about knowing when to shift." She told them about the fall, the silence, the fear, and the healing that followed, not just of her hip, but of her mindset. She spoke about the science, too, about morning surges, blood pressure, temperature, regulation. She mentioned names: Stanley, Doris, Albert. All the stories she'd learned since becoming aware of how fragile mornings could be. "But the most important name," she said, "is yours, your story, your safety." After that talk, the center added a new workshop, Safe Routines After 70. Ruth helped lead it. They gave out printed guides, talked about hydration, medication, timing, anti-scald devices, and every time Ruth would end with the same phrase, "You have more power than you think. Use it wisely." In the quiet moments of her day, pouring tea, watering her violets, folding laundry, Ruth no longer moved on autopilot. She paid attention. She paused. And when she stepped into the shower, now at 11 a.m., the water was warm but not scalding. The lights were on her emergency button nearby, and the sun streamed through the window like a quiet reassurance. Ruth didn't live in fear anymore. She lived with intention, and she passed it forward. To the new widower across the street, she brought soup and a reminder to install grab bars. To her granddaughter, she gifted a journal and told her, "Write down what makes you feel strong today. You'll want to remember it later." To herself, she offered grace. Because the truth is, we don't age all at once. We age in small, invisible moments, and sometimes the bravest thing we can do is change a habit we thought we'd never question. If this chapter has touched your heart, consider this your moment to act. Reevaluate your own routine or help someone you love do the same. Safety starts with awareness, and awareness, when shared, becomes legacy. Click. Like, leave a comment, and share this with someone who may need the reminder. You never know. Your story could be the one that saves a life.